I grew up in apartheid South Africa. We were all victims of that, but I never experienced the kind of gender discrimination that I experienced at the bar before the bar. It was almost, you had colleagues that were male colleagues, intellectually were far less able, or if you use the word inferior, I'm trying to be more diplomatic, that were, the work was coming to them. They were just so busy, making so much of money, and they were young women, black and white, and there was no work for them, And in those early years, we started the mentorship programs and stuff. Yeah, the bar is a difficult place. I mean, it's going through, the struggles that we went through then are still happening now. There's now been a split at the bar. There's a whole new bar that's emerged in the last 2 weeks. It has already about 80 members. And the struggles that they were facing now in the last 10 years were the same struggles that we were facing 15, 20 years ago,
So what advice would you give an advocate now at the bar, and what do you regard as the essential qualities of an advocate?
Well, I think, firstly, you need to have great communication skills, diligence, scholarship that goes with being an advocate, a creativity. I think you have to be very creative. I think the eye for detail. You need to really, you need to equip yourself forensically. I think being a judge now and watching advocates apply their trade every day, in front of us, I would say to advocates, as a judge, you need to know your case. You need to prepare. You need to understand that when you come to court to present a case, you're firstly being paid by a client to whom you've got to provide a service. And there's a duty on you to basically argue the case effectively, right? Advocates also need to know when to stop. They need to listen to the questions. They need to know how to make a judge happy. They need to know how to ensure the judge is on their side, okay? And sometimes advocates forget about that, and there's this element of arrogance that goes into it. But they forget that we are the decision makers. So don't undermine a judge, respect the judge. Put the judge up there on a pedestal, and the judge will listen, because we are so in need to be persuaded. And it's so good to have a senior counsel in your court, somebody that's got experience. They just come and they argue economically what the issue is, because you need the advocate's help. You need the advocate's help in deciding. They're the cases that are clearly right or clearly wrong, and you know which way to go, There's only one answer. But then there are those difficult cases where there are two right answers. And it's in those difficult cases that you really need the advocate to persuade you, to assist you in making that decision. And that's what their job is, to assist you in making it. So rather than becoming argumentative, assist the judge. There was a point where there was a standstill in transformation of the bench. And I think in the last, I'd say, I'm now a judge for 9 years, and I'd say in the last 8 to 9 years, there's been a concerted effort to ensure that there are more women judges that are coming, that are being appointed by the JSC. So, for instance, in my court, in the last JSC appointment process, there were at least, I think, 4 women. There were 4 women, I think, 4 or 5 women, and just one male that was appointed, which was fantastic. Compared to when I became a judge, I was the only woman that applied, of 8 or 9 people that applied for a job. So that's very encouraging now that the judge presidents are not acting as gatekeepers, because there was a time where the judge presidents were acting as gatekeepers. So they were only allowing in individuals that they wanted in their courts, and really keeping a lot of people out. So I think that that culture has changed for the better. So certainly in my court, women are now acting. A lot more women are acting. I think across the country. It's so important. I think.
But why, what difference do women judges
Oh,
make?
I mean, I think firstly I think it's important to have women judges because it's going to strengthen the rule of law. It's going to strengthen access to justice for women themselves, right? It gives the bench legitimacy. The bench has got to have a gender composition that basically reflects the demographics. I mean, I think women bring a different sense, a different ethos, a different spirit to the bench. I mean, I see it in my women colleagues. I see how interested they are in developing, in continuing education, in mentoring the younger judges. There's that sense of community that comes from women that you don't always see in men. I mean, there's also, there's a steep learning curve as an advocate, and there's a steep, or any lawyer for that matter. There's a steep learning curve as a judge. You learn every single day on the job, but it takes immense diligence, to keep abreast of everything. I mean, being a judge, you get confronted with cases that you never did in your life, areas of law that you've never did in your life, and you've got to apply your mind to it. And after you've done 2 or 3 cases, you become very comfortable in the area. Yeah, there's the notion that black judges are not equipped to deal with commercial cases or with tax cases or with competition cases. I think it's complete nonsense. Unless you're given the opportunity to work on those cases, you're never going to learn. So again, when it comes to work and allocating work, you also can't become a gatekeeper. You've got to ensure that you're spreading the work, allocating the work equitably. So for me, that's very, very important. And that's certainly something that we encourage on our bench.